How well do you know English conditionals? Perhaps you know the basic A1 and A2 rules, but do you know the more advanced English grammar rules, B1, B2, C1, C2? Take this test to find out. In this test, there are 10 questions, and each question is harder than the previous one. And if you can answer all 10 questions, your knowledge of conditionals is C2. Okay, let's start with the elementary levels, A1 and A2. Question 1. Which sentence means something always happens in the same way? Is it A, when the day begins, the sun rises, or B, if you call her at the office, she will reply immediately? Now, I'm going to give you 5 seconds to think of your answer, but if you need more time, you can do this. Go to Settings at the bottom of this screen and choose 0.25 speed, and your 5 seconds will become 20 seconds. So do that now if you think you'll need more time to answer. But here come your 5 seconds. And the answer was A. When the day begins, the sun rises. Why is that? Well, it's because when we use when, followed by the present simple in the first clause, and present simple in the second clause, we have a condition that always leads to this result. A conditional sentence has 2 clauses. It has the first clause, which presents the condition, usually, and the second clause, which presents the outcome. Now, both of these sentences do that. They have a condition and an outcome. But there's a slight difference between using when and using if. When we use when, then the condition always leads to this result. When the day begins, the sun rises and it always rises. This always happens in the same way. With B, though, it's slightly different. We still have a condition that leads to a result, but this could either mean always lead to the same result, or just in this situation. And in this particular instance, we could imagine that it's just this situation. If you call her at the office, she will reply immediately. Well, she's probably not always at the office. She's probably only at the office during work hours. So this if sentence only applies in some situations, not all, like when. Now, you'll see there's some numbers next to these explanations. These numbers match up with my 1000 English Grammar Rules Explained PDF. And these are numbers 211 and 194 on the list of 1000. You can get this PDF through a link below me now in the video description. Or alternatively, go to this channel that you can see now for my grammar lessons every day. My intention over the next months is to publish a short video on every single one of these 1000 rules on YouTube for free. But you need to go to this new channel, Rupert's 1000 English Grammar Rules Explained. You can get that through a link in the video description below me too. Let's move on to something slightly more advanced, B1 level. Here's question 2. Should we fill the gap with will or would? If I lived in space, I gap need a spacesuit. Here come your 5 seconds. And the answer is would. Why would? Well, because here we have if followed by the past simple. So if I lived is in the past simple. And then we have a clause with would. I would need a spacesuit. And we use this structure for an unreal condition that leads to an imaginary outcome. It's not real. We don't live in space. It's probably not possible. We're just imagining the situation. And we imagine this situation and we think, well, what if this was true? Then that leads to this imaginary outcome or consequence. I would need a spacesuit, special clothing to help me live in space. Now let's move on to B2 level and question 3. Spot the mistake in these 2 sentences. I lost the race. If I had run faster, I would win. What's the mistake? Here's 5 seconds. The mistake is with I would win. It should have been I would have won. And that's because we need a third conditional structure here. If with the past perfect, and then a clause with would, have, and past participle. If I had run faster, this is if with the past perfect. Had run is the past perfect form for run. And then would have past participle, would have won. Won here is the past participle of the verb win. And why do we need to use it in this situation? It's because we are imagining something that is not true about the past. The race is in the past. We know that because of the first sentence. But we are imagining a change in a past situation. What if things in the past were different? And we are imagining, well, maybe if I had run faster, this could have been different in the past. I didn't run faster in the past because I didn't win the race. But if I had run faster, here's the outcome that was different should that be true. There would have been a different outcome if this imaginary situation happened. If I had run faster, the different outcome, I would have won. And we call this the third conditional. Here comes another question which is at the B2 level. Question 4. Select the best alternative in the sentences below. A. If I reach as high as I can, I might or I can be able to reach the shelf. B. If everyone arrives by 9:15, we might or we can start the meeting at 9:20. What is the best alternative here? 5 seconds. And these are the best alternatives. If I reach as high as I can, I might be able to reach the shelf. If everyone arrives by 9:15, we can start the meeting at 9:20. Let me first of all explain why we would use might and why we would use can, and then use that to show why these are the best answers for each sentence. So if with the present simple, followed by a clause with might, introduces a condition that leads to a possibility. And this fits A well. If I reach, if with present simple, as high as I can, I might be able to reach the shelf. If I reach as high as I can, the possibility will exist that I can reach the shelf. In B, though, we use can. When we use if and present simple and clause with can, this is for a condition that leads to an ability. So everyone is there at 9:15. As a result, we have the ability to start the meeting at 9:20. So can is best here. Now, why couldn't we have switched it and used might or can in the other sentences? Well, in A, we have I can be able to reach the shelf, but we can't say can be able to. We normally could say might be able to, would be able to, could be able to, but we don't say I can be able to. We would simply say I can reach the shelf. So that wouldn't work here. Otherwise, it might have been correct. If I reach as high as I can, then if I know that my ability to reach is enough to reach the top shelf, then I could say I can reach the shelf. But because of be able to, we can't do it in this case. With B, might would actually work in certain situations. Let's imagine everyone arrives at 9:15, but we still have to organise the chairs around the table. That might stop us being able to start at 9:20. But the best answer here is can, because we would expect if everyone's there at 9:15 that we would then have the ability to start at 9:20. So can is the best answer for B, but might could be possible depending on the context. So we've looked at the A levels and B levels. Now let's move on to the more advanced levels and start with C1. In which sentence can we fill the gap with will? A. If you gap, improve your fitness as a result, I will go running with you. B. If you gap, go running, you will improve your fitness. Here's your 5 seconds. The answer was A. If you will improve your fitness as a result, I will go running with you. Do you see what's happened here? The outcome needs the condition to also be an outcome in order for there to be agreement. I won't do it if you're not going to improve your fitness as a result. But I will do it if you will improve your fitness as a result. So the order has changed here. Normally, sentences work like B. If you go running, you will improve your fitness. So go running is the condition that comes first. If yes, then your fitness improves afterwards. That's B. We don't use will in the if clause in those situations. But in A, the running will happen first. That's in the second clause. But improve your fitness is in the first clause. So the second clause comes before the first clause. And the person will only agree on condition that the second clause leads to the first clause. And when that's the situation, we put will in the if clause to make it clear that to agree to this situation, the condition in the first clause must follow as a result of the outcome in the second clause. Now for question 6. This is also at the C1 level. Does A or B contain a grammar mistake? A, you can get some food now, but if you took too much, there will not be enough food for anyone else. B, if the food delivery arrived on time, there will be food when we arrive. Is it A or B? Now, there's a lot to read here, so again, a reminder that you could give yourself more time by going to your settings and slowing the speed down to 0.25, because I'm going to give you 5 seconds, but if you do this, you will have 20 seconds. The 5 seconds start now. Here's the answer. It's sentence A that has the mistake. Why is that? Well, let's look at the rules, because what we have here are 2 examples where we have an if clause with the past simple followed by a clause with will, which we don't normally do. Normally we have if followed by the present simple and then a clause with will. But in sentence B, something happens that allows us to use the past simple. What is that? Well, if the outcome depends upon something from the past and we don't know whether it has happened or not, then we can put the condition in the past. So looking at B, if the food delivery arrived on time, there will be food when we arrive. But the condition depends on something that happened in the past that we don't know about yet. I don't know if the food arrived on time. But if it did arrive on time, if it arrived on time, then the condition will be fulfilled that will lead to the future outcome that when we arrive, there will be food. So B is correct because it follows the rules for if with past simple and clause with will. That's not the case in A. In A, we're not talking about an unknown past activity. We're talking about something now or slightly in the future. You can get some food now, but if you took too much, well, that has to be wrong because we know we're taking the food now. It's not based on something in the past that we don't know about. It's something in the present, we do know about it. So it should be, if you take too much, there will not be enough food for anyone else, or there won't be enough food for anyone else. Because we're talking about a present condition, then we need to use if with the present simple. Here's one more C1 level question. Which clause must happen first for the other to be fulfilled? The clause in red or the clause in blue? If you need to get to the museum quickly, that's the red one, you must find a taxi. Which one comes first for the other to be fulfilled? Here's your 5 seconds. And the answer is the second clause needs to come first. You must find a taxi. And that's because we've used must in the second clause. When we use must or should, we can change the order of events in the first conditional, where we have if and the present simple. When the if clause expresses a desire, the must clause is required to happen first in order to fulfill that desire. So going to the museum doesn't happen before you get in the taxi. You have to get in the taxi first. So you must find a taxi, and then the first clause will become possible. You can then get to the museum quickly. So must and should can sometimes switch the order in the if sentences. Not always, but sometimes it does. Let's move on now to the hardest conditional rules of all, C2 level. Question 8. Which word can you add to the if clause below? Should, will, or could? I don't expect you will need my help, but if you need it, let me know immediately. Should, will, or could? Now, again, you may need more time to think because we're at a really advanced level. So slow down your speed of your video to 0.25 if you want to give yourself 20 seconds. But otherwise, here come your 5 seconds. And the answer here is should. I don't expect you will need my help, but if you should need it, let me know immediately. Now, what's the impact of using should in the if clause? Well, if you add should after if for conditions which are unlikely to be true, what you're doing is you're introducing an outcome just in case it is true. Look at the two sentences together. I don't expect you would need my help. So we don't expect the next clause to be true. We don't expect that you will need help. So we don't think it's going to be true, but there's just a chance that it might be true. So we add this information just in case. Just in case you need it, let me know immediately. But we can also express that as if with should. If you should need it, let me know immediately. A reminder that all of these numbers that you can see come from this PDF, 1000 English Grammar Rules Explained, which I'm going to go through over the course of the next months on my other channel, Rupert's 1000 English Grammar Rules. Or if you want to get all of these rules straight away, download the PDF from a link in the description below. Here's question 9. Which two words can be left out with no change in meaning? If you are instructed to show your passport, give it to the passport control officer. There are two words in this sentence that you can leave out, and it doesn't change the meaning. Here come your 5 seconds to think about what they are. The answer is you are. Instead of saying if you are instructed, you could simply say if instructed to show your passport, give it to the passport control officer. Now, this seems strange, but this is something that native speakers do all the time in more formal, official situations, such as if you have to go through passport control. Why? It's to do with this structure here. If followed by the passive form and an imperative. Sometimes it can be used without an imperative as well, but you'll usually find that it is. In a conditional sentence containing instructions, using the passive form, you can omit subject plus to be in the passive structure to be more formal and brief. So instead of saying if you are instructed, you could say if instructed. You are instructed is the passive form because someone else instructs you. You don't do the activity. Someone does it to you. Why can we leave it out with no change in meaning? Because the second clause makes it clear. Because it's an imperative, give it to the passport control officer. We know it relates to you. So leaving it out changes the meaning in no way at all. And it's absolutely fine to do this. And it makes your instruction more formal than it was. Here's the last question, and it's more of a task than a question, and you may well need to slow your video down for this one because you'll have to think about it, no matter what level you're at. Rewrite this sentence so that it starts with if and makes it clear the teacher's advice was necessary. Here's your original sentence. The teacher's advice meant that we were able to answer the question. How can you rewrite this sentence so it starts with an if and makes it clear the teacher's advice was necessary? You can make as many changes as you wish, but it has to start with if and it has to keep the same meaning and do what the instructions say. This is going to be a challenge regardless of your level. Slow your video down now if you need to. Otherwise, here are the 5 seconds starting now. And here's how you can do it. If it wasn't for the teacher's advice, we wouldn't have been able to answer the question. If it wasn't for, followed by a person, is a special structure using if, and we use this when this person prevented the second clause from becoming true. And we often use it when we want to praise someone or say how well someone did. So in this situation here, we were able to answer that question. We are so glad that we could answer that question. But there's only one reason we could answer it, and that's because of the teacher's advice. If it wasn't for the teacher's advice, we wouldn't have been able to answer the question. In other words, it was completely necessary for the teacher to give us advice to prevent the other outcome happening. So that was a really, really tough one. If you've answered some of the other C2 level questions, then your English is really, really advanced. But this is a phrase that native speakers use all the time. So it's really important to know it and use it in the right context. One final reminder that you can get all of these rules that I've taught in this video straight away on my 1000 English Grammar Rules PDF, and you can get it through my website, englishwithrupert.com. Click the link in the video description.